you can. Okay. Stephanie, you can now record. Spencer. Okay. Sandra. Ruth. Hold on. Allow record Ruth. Okay, let's get going here. So I think most of you can now record, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then, so what we will do is I'm going to figure out how to do this more efficiently. And then I'm going to ask Tristan to upload the recording he's going to make to my Dundee State University YouTube page. So it'll be in a couple places, okay? We good?
You're good.
Let's do it, everybody. Okay, so fabulous. It's great to see all of you. I am sending just tons of love to you and your family. I hope you're well. I hope you're healthy. I hope you're safe. It's good to see you here. We're not only gonna get through this, but we're gonna thrive. Okay, so thank you. I'm glad it was easy to get here. We'll figure out the recording, and we're gonna continue. In fact, we're gonna get better. It's gonna even be better than the old lectures. So no fear. We move forward together, and we're gonna resist this, and we're gonna kick ass. That's just how we're gonna do it. So thank you. First thing I will say, this is how we will do this for every class, okay? So next Thursday, not next Tuesday, because next Tuesday is a holiday, but every Tuesday, Thursday, probably until the semester. I don't think we're coming back to in-person classes this semester. So every Tuesday and Thursday, 10 minutes, 15 minutes before the class, go to your CSUN email, and there will be the hot link. Pop on it just like we're doing, and this is how we're gonna do it, okay? Yep. Good. All right. Now, also, office hours. Office hours will begin on Thursday. And I will go to my regular 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. office hours and 11 to 12 office hours. And again, it's a little clumsy, but the same process. For office hours, I will send to the classes a link for the Zoom office hours. So Thursday morning, if you want to pop in for a 7 to 7:50 office hour, go to your CSUN email. There's going to be a link. I will be available. Those are the office hours. Same for the 11 o'clock. Okay, so we will handle the office hours in the same way that we are doing the sort of logins for the class. I will create a meeting. I will send you a link to it. You go to it, and we do it. Okay, is that good?
Perfect.
Yep. Good. All right.
Sounds good to me.
Good, love you guys. Okay, exam. The exam is due, still same time, Thursday, April 9th. Okay, Thursday, April 9th. Now, directly related to the exam, I have eliminated, I'm very sad to have done this, but I've eliminated Nietzsche's second essay. We lost a lecture last Thursday. We're eating up a lecture, just getting reacquainted right now, and we're just not going to have time to get to the second essay. So I've eliminated it for your required reading, and I've eliminated it for the midterm. Yeah, Avo.
So it's just exam 1 that we need to read.
Essay 1, you need to read it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the official reading that you are responsible for the midterm, Mills, chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4, nothing's changed there. And in Nietzsche's The Genealogy of Morals, the preface and the first essay. Okay?
Perfect.
And all of you already have the question, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, a few more sort of things, and then we get right back where we left off. In addition to all of that, I have overwhelmed you, I'm very sorry, with several documents. I have typed up my transition notes from Mill to Nietzsche. Did you get those? You guys got that?
Yes.
Yeah, they're helpful.
Yep.
Who loves you, man? Really? Okay. In addition, I have sent you a typed up outline of the introduction to Nietzsche. And we were in the middle of this outline when we left off lectures. Did you guys get this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Outline to the preface. We're going to start this today. Outline and outline for the first essay. Okay. In addition, I sent you guys my lecture notes. Did you get those?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. You've got the official Nick Dungy lecture notes.
Yep.
And by the way, don't sell them. And if you do sell them, I want a part of it. All right. No hiding Dungy's lectures on that very, very, very lucrative dark web Dungy lecture market, right? I know these are hot, but you have my official lecture notes for the preface, and most importantly, you have my lecture notes for the first essay. You guys got all that?
Yep.
Okay, beautiful. So this is all done for you. It's done to help supplement your reading. It's helped you get your head around what's going on and use them. You're free to use them all. You're free to cite them. You're free to sell them, but I want a portion of the profits. And
What do you want?
buy me a Porsche. All right. So are we good? You guys have all the documents I've sent?
Yep.
Okay. And you know where we are. You know what you need to be reading and what we need to be doing. Is that right?
Correct.
All right. Let's do this. You guys ready to get going?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
Can someone remind me where we left off?
We never started Nietzsche. I think we finished Mill, and we were going to start Nietzsche. We never.
Yeah, we blasted through chapter 4, but we did it. So.
Yep. Yeah, we blasted chapter 4. And also too, but we started the introduction to Nietzsche. I know that for sure.
Oh, you started talking about metaphysics, and then class ended.
Yeah,
Okay.
we were in the metaphysics boot camp.
Okay.
We were right off of section A. What is postmodernism?
Yep.
The intro. That's where we left off.
Okay. So let's just kind of rehearse a little bit to get back up to speed. I know someone said that they read this, it was helpful. So read this. It's an excellent, this transition remarks between Mill and Nietzsche is a nice way of framing what's going on, okay? So now with Nietzsche, we turn to an alternative account of human consciousness, of what it means to be a human being, and therefore an alternative account of what freedom is and the relationship between the individual and the political community, okay? Now, in addition, not only are we moving to an alternative account of what human consciousness is, what human identity is, and what freedom is, and how those things are related to our social and political interactions, we are, as we've been saying now for some time, entering into or introducing for the first time a postmodern account of human agency, human freedom, and the relationship between human beings and the social and political order. So with Nietzsche, we begin this movement into postmodernism. And on the outline that I sent you, the Nietzsche's, So on the outline that I sent you for an introduction to Nietzsche, we first wanted to introduce Nietzsche first in terms of postmodernism and postmodernism's critique of metaphysics, okay? So let's work through that very quickly. And also too, if you have your outline for the preface to the genealogy of morals out, that's also useful right now. So what is going on with postmodernism? What's going on with postmodernism as a kind of particular philosophical or political philosophical view? And I want to say two, and now another thing, three things. I want to say three things that characterize all postmodern thinking, and especially Nietzsche. Nietzsche introduces and sets in motion postmodern thinking in the European West. So first and foremost, as you guys know, and forgive me for boring you, we're just going to kind of rehearse this a little bit to set things up. Postmodernism is animated by three things. In the past, I've said two. I want to add a third just to round it out. First, all postmodern thinking is extremely suspicious, extraordinarily suspicious about the existence of some form of metaphysical truth, whether that is a type of metaphysical truth understood philosophically in a Platonic or Aristotelian or Hegelian way, or whether it's a metaphysical truth conceived of in some time of religious, New Testament Christian or Islamic way, a sort of truth about God and about how we ought to live. Or three, if it is a type of metaphysical truth commonly understood now in the Enlightenment, in the normative social and medical sciences of the Enlightenment. And by the way, this is the paradigm that sort of structures our life. You and I are the heirs of a kind of Enlightenment normative social and behavioral and medical and physical sciences. In fact, in a couple of weeks, you'll get political science degrees. You'll get a degree as a political science major, right? And so you have been studying this phenomenon called politics from a certain scientific point of view, and we tend to think about what we're doing as a kind of acquisition of knowledge that we hope is somehow objectively connected to the truth of things. We're acquiring that knowledge as political science. We're learning how to analyze and process that data. And then we're going to go out, we're going to take that data, and we're going to do important things. And so the first thing that postmodernism does, the first thing that Nietzsche does, is to emerge on the scene and articulate this idea that Nietzsche is extraordinarily suspicious. And again, we'll talk about this whole stance of suspicion, this glance of suspicion, this gaze of suspicion. It's very important in the broader argument of things. But Nietzsche is the first to comprehensively emerge on the scene and suggest that he's extraordinarily suspicious about the existence of moral truth, objective moral truth. Two, Nietzsche said, and again, this becomes a core element in Nietzsche's analysis. We will see this immediately in the preface, and we'll see this immediately in the first essay, right? Nietzsche is not just suspicious of the existence of some type of moral truth. He is pathologically obsessed with the question of what are the consequences to our minds, our bodies, and our politics. Again, he's obsessed with this. Postmodernism is obsessed with this. They are obsessed with asking, investigating, exploring, trying to understand, trying to interpret, trying to discern what are the consequences to our minds, bodies, and politics that result from our belief in an objective truth and our commitment to those ideas, right? This is the animating energy of almost all postmodern political philosophy. This is where it really happens for them. Now, I'm going to slide this in. We're going to talk about this for the remaining Nietzsche lectures before the midterm, okay? When we frame this second issue, what are the effects to our minds, bodies, and politics that result from our belief in a moral truth and our commitment to those ideas? Nietzsche's going to call this the slave morality. If you've gotten into the preface, if you've gotten into the first essay at all, this question for Nietzsche is sort of answered in the slave morality. For Nietzsche, our belief in and our commitment to some kind of objective, metaphysical, moral truth has produced, the consequence of our belief in that has produced in our minds, across our bodies, in our politics, a kind of slave morality that has made us kind of weak and resentful and depressed and life-hating. So for Nietzsche, this second question, what are the consequences to our mind, body, and politics that result from our belief in and commitment to moral truth? This is the question for Nietzsche, right? And the answer to that from a Nietzschean point of view is that the consequences to our minds, bodies, and politics that result from our belief in moral truth and our commitment to its ways of life and its modes of life and its expectations has been catastrophic to us. And this is the heart of Nietzsche. Now, the third thing that I want to add to this, and I didn't talk about this when we were in person, I want to talk about it now because it's going to play an important role as we work through together the Nietzsche lectures. The third thing that kind of animates postmodernism is third, is it possible for us to, one, become aware of the slave morality, and then two, begin this process of kind of disentangling ourselves from these ideas, and not just disentangling ourselves from these ideas, but in doing so, try to reduce episodes of resentment, reduce episodes of nihilism or self-hatred or pessimism or depression. Can we, one, become aware of the slave morality? Can we see it operating in our own consciousness as we carry our bodies, as we operate politically? Can we identify the potentially negative and catastrophic psychological, emotional, and intellectual and political ramifications of that? Can we see that? And then can we begin the process of disentangling ourselves from those ideas so we can reduce this idea of resentment or self-hatred or depression or a kind of nihilism? Can we do that? And I add this third element because for Nietzsche and for postmoderns, that's what they mean by freedom. Freedom becomes the process by which, in a sort of in a similar way as Mill, freedom becomes the process by which we disengage ourselves from the ideas that produce the slave morality, right? And in doing so, kind of free ourselves from self-hatred, from depression, from nihilism, kind of free ourselves from those ideas and liberate, sort of animate, mobilize ourselves to become responsible for the people who give their own lives meaning, value, and purpose. The purpose of life for Nietzsche, the purpose of freedom for Nietzsche is to become the kind of person who has the emotional strength and the intellectual openness, the intellectual creativity to begin the process of giving one's life meaning. And again, we can now start to juxtapose this very sharply with Mill. The meaning of our lives isn't something that we discover, like Mill had argued. It's not out there waiting for our rational discovery and cultivation. That obviously for Nietzsche, that doesn't exist. There's no objective moral truth out there, and there's no objectively true self. So whatever meaning that Nietzsche is talking about, that we need to articulate, it is a kind of a creation, a kind of an aesthetic process. For Nietzsche, the responsibility we have, the moral responsibility we have, is to give our life that meaning, to find, create, cultivate, whatever it might be, the emotional strength and the intellectual capacity to give our lives meaning, value, and purpose. So that's the first element of the outline. Nietzsche introduces postmodernism. And postmodernism is suspicious of an objective truth, a moral truth. It is extremely concerned about the consequences to our minds, bodies, and politics that result from our belief in and commitment to that moral truth. And it seeks a way, it seeks to open a way for us to disentangle ourselves from the slave morality, for the nihilism, for the self-hatred, for the weakness and the dependency. And not just disentangle, but to inspire us to begin the people who take existential responsibility for giving their lives meaning, value, and purpose. That's the goal of Nietzsche, and that's the story he tells, especially in the preface and especially in the first essay. Okay? Good? You guys are all so cool. You're muted. Just someone let me know we're cool.
We're good.
Good.
Sir.
Love you.
Good.
All right. See that this is the problem with having you muted. I feel so alone here. I don't hear you breathing. I can't hear you laughing at my bad jokes. I'm dying here. I'm in a dungy echo chamber. All right. Now, critically related to all postmodern theory is obviously a critique of metaphysics, right? Nietzsche is extremely suspicious about the existence of some objective truth. Now, I'm not going to, or we can run through it quickly, but I typed out on your outline in that first section on the introduction to the Nietzsche outline, sort of 4 or 5 major elements of all metaphysical thought about truth. And they're right there. So what is Nietzsche critical of? What is he criticizing in Plato? What is he criticizing in New Testament Christianity? What is he criticizing in Hegel or in Marx? What is he criticizing in the normative dimensions of the Enlightenment, social and behavioral sciences? What the hell is he actually criticizing? First, right, all metaphysical arguments, and again, you guys have heard me say this 100 times, so just kind of hang out with me and be patient as we work just through this in a structured way. First, Nietzsche is suspicious that an objective truth exists, and this objective truth has a moral orientation or a normative orientation. And when I use the word normative, things that are normative are things that speak to how we ought to live. So a normative argument is an argument about something, but in that argument is a kind of suggestion that this is how we ought to live. This is how we ought to do things. So normative arguments can be moral, and normative arguments can also be arguments that tend to tell other people how they ought to do things. And all metaphysical systems of thought are moral and normative, right? We, like I said earlier, we are the heirs of an Enlightenment normative social and behavioral and medical sciences paradigm. And so Nietzsche is suspicious, one, about this idea that this moral truth exists, understood as Plato's pure idea, Christian notion of God, or this Enlightenment notion of natural science, biological sciences, the true and healthy development of say, one's mind or one's body or one's sexuality. The postmoderns are very suspicious about claims like that. Also, too, because he's suspicious about the existence of some moral truth, he's suspicious about this idea that is critical to metaphysics, that for something to be true, it has to apply all the time, everywhere, and apply to everyone. Nothing like that could possibly exist for Nietzsche. And again, we're going to see why that is soon. Another element of metaphysics that Nietzsche will criticize quite profoundly. All metaphysical systems of thought make some argument that there's something unique to human beings, that there's something special to human beings that first allows them awareness of that truth and then access to it. So as you know, if you've had a class with me with Plato or 350, Plato and Socrates are important from a certain point of view because they're the first to emerge and argue that human beings are rational, right? Socrates had said human beings are rational. Plato had said human beings are rational. Aristotle had said human beings are rational. Hegel had modified this. Kant was famous for his rationality. And while they had nuanced and different ways of describing this reason, they would all agree on the following. For them, for metaphysical systems of thought, for metaphysical thinkers, reason is a special faculty. It's some special ability, some faculty, some capacity, call it what you want. Reason is some special ability, unique, so we think, to human beings. that allows them first to be aware of an objective truth, of a moral truth, and then once they become aware of it, once they activate that reason, to pursue knowledge of it, to pursue it and acquire it. And that's really a foundational element of all metaphysical systems of thought, right? And it makes sense if you think about what metaphysics is. The idea that there has to be something unique to human beings that allows them awareness of it and access to it is critical. Otherwise, moral truth can exist and we don't know about it, right? It's not something we're aware of. It's not something we can access. So any metaphysical system of thought that argues that there's an objective truth out there, that Plato says there are pure ideas about justice, or New Testament Christianity argues there's a God out there, or normative social and behavioral and medical sciences say there's a true and proper way of functioning for natural things, right? For any metaphysical system that says there's something out there, there has to be a component in that argument that says, well, there's something unique about human beings that allows them to be aware of it and to access it. That's critical. And of course, Nietzsche's going to be very suspicious of that. Nietzsche's going to be extraordinarily suspicious of the Platonic notion of reason, or the Christian notion of a soul, right? He's going to be very suspicious of the kind of argument for reason Kant will mobilize, or the argument for reason modern normative Enlightenment scientists mobilize in the pursuit and acquisition of knowledge. 3, this is huge. 4, I'm kind of applying these as I go. This is huge, and this gets us directly into Nietzsche's entire project. All metaphysical systems of thought with moral orientations argue a truth exists, argues that human beings are rational and therefore they have access to it, and 3 or 4, depending on how you want to do the counting on the outline. All metaphysical systems of thought in one way or another argue for the same thing. For all metaphysical systems of thought with moral orientations, the purpose of life is the ongoing and unending pursuit and acquisition of knowledge of the truth. That is, for Plato and for Socrates, the purpose of life was to as best of one's capacities and abilities, to spend one's life searching for knowledge, to spend one's life acquiring moral knowledge about justice, about equality, about friendship, about love. And not just to acquire knowledge about what it means to be a human being and how to live well, but to acquire knowledge about how we live together with others, right? The political philosophy itself, if you had to imagine or describe the goal and purpose of political philosophy when it first existed in Socrates, you would say it's the pursuit of how to live well, nos sum, know thyself, and justice. Right? It's a search for justice. How do we live together with other people in political communities without killing each other? And how do we do it well? What the hell is justice? Right? And so this is a critical moment in all postmodern, all in metaphysical thoughts. The purpose of life for Plato, the purpose of life for Christians. And in a way, there's even a version of this operating in your lives as political science majors. Right now, you and I are the heirs. Forget Nietzsche for a second. You and I are the heirs of an Enlightenment normative social and behavioral sciences. You are in a political science department. You're in a college called the Social and Behavioral Sciences. You're going to get a degree in political science, right? And you and I, in some way, again, forget Nietzsche for a minute. You and I, in some way, are deeply committed to the idea that, one, the things that Professor De Maio is teaching you, or Cole, she's, especially the scientific quantitative stuff, the methodology stuff, right? Or Becker, we're committed at some deep level, one, that knowledge is kind of what? It's true, right? That it's that it's accurate. And we're committed to this idea. Not only is it true and accurate, but it's good for us to do what?
Accept it.
Yeah, acquire it. Yeah, accept it, acquire it, right? That's the whole goal of your education. You've spent 4 years acquiring all this political science knowledge, right? And again, there's a continuum of belief here, but at some core level, we're kind of committed to the idea that some of this is true is a very heavy word in this context, but some of this is accurate, right? And it's not just accurate, but that it's good, right? That we're going to give you this knowledge, right? And you're going to think it's accurate and it's true and it's good, and you're going to take it, and acquiring this knowledge is good for who? You. And then when this whole catastrophe blows over, you're going to go out in the universe, into the community, and you're going to do what good political scientists do. You're going to use this knowledge, right, to help others, right? And so in some ways, you and I right now are fulfilling this metaphysical promise, right? We think that there's some objective truth that has a kind of moral or normative orientation. We accept this idea that there's something unique about us. We've got reason, and we can acquire this knowledge, and then we're going to do good things with it. We're going to reduce suffering. We're going to reduce crisis. We're going to move in this upward, linear, progressive way. And that this is kind of, if you put aside the money and the consumption and all that, if you put aside all that for a minute, that this is somehow what you should be doing with your life, that there's a normative purpose to your life. And this is a core element of all metaphysical systems of thought, that the purpose of life is the lifelong, ongoing, unending pursuit and acquisition of knowledge about how to live. And then for the last purpose is that you take this knowledge and you apply it to yourself, and you apply it to the community. So you know what? I'm very sorry. No one ever, somehow my phone got connected to my laptop. Excuse me. How do I? Okay. Anyways, you guys there?
Yep.
Yes.
Still
Sorry
here.
about that. All right. Love you guys. Sorry about that.
It's fine.
Pick up if you need to, Professor.
What's that?
I said you can pick up if you need to,
Oh,
Professor.
God, no. Are you kidding me? No. I was shocked. First of all, I thought it was one of your phones because no one ever calls me. All right. So, okay. So Nietzsche's, when we talk about a postmodern critique of metaphysics, we are talking about a comprehensive critique of all of those core claims in metaphysics. Okay? They're very suspicious about the objective truth. They're extremely suspicious about something like reason or the soul. They are extraordinarily suspicious about this idea that the purpose of life is to pursue one's life, acquiring moral knowledge about how to live. And they're especially suspicious about this kind of normative giving of that knowledge to the community. In fact, as dramatic as this sounds, those things, all 4 or 5 of those elements of metaphysics, if actually believed and acted on, according to Nietzsche, produce the slave morality. In fact, those things do harm to you. They don't liberate you. In fact, exactly the opposite. Our critique of those things is comprehensive. It's absolutely critique. It's complete. So we good? So we know what postmodernism is. We understand what metaphysics is, and we understand specifically what Nietzsche is criticizing about metaphysics. Cool?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Now, page 2 of the outline, the introduction to Nietzsche outline. Okay. Core. You ready for this, you guys? How does Nietzsche and the postmodernists operationalize, put into motion their critique of metaphysics? We know what metaphysics is, and we know what they are critiquing. Okay? But how in the hell do they operationalize? How do they set in motion? How do they go about the critique itself? Because it's not, I mean, I'm sure Nietzsche could just show up in the 1870s and say, not sure God exists. That wouldn't be radical. Machiavelli did something similar in the 1500s. Hobbes did something similar in the 1650s. You see throughout modernity an emerging skepticism about moral metaphysics and even metaphysics in general. So what does Nietzsche do? How does Nietzsche actually operationalize the critique of metaphysics? How does he critique any system of thought that claims to be metaphysically true and moral in its orientation? How does he do that? How do postmodernists do that? You ready? They do it through a new theory of language. They do it through an alternative interpretation of what language is and how language operates. There you go. There's a show. Okay, let me repeat. How does Nietzsche, how does postmodernism operationalize, how does it actually set in motion its critique of metaphysics? It does so by inventing or articulating or asserting an alternative theory or account of what language is and how language operates. Okay? That theory of language is called nominalism. And I'm going to write something in the thing here. Okay, did you guys see that in the chat? Nominalism. It's on the outline. By the way, what the hell?
I don't see it.
Did you send it privately maybe to somebody? Because I don't see it either.
Why would I? Well, it does. It says privately, but how do I get? Why are my messages?
So
My
when it says two, you can. There's like a drop down menu. You need to click everybody.
I did. Everyone publicly. Allow participants to chat with.
No. On the actual chat, it says two, and then there's a drop down. You need to select everyone.
When you want to send a chat, you need to make sure that it's going to everybody, not this one.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know why my chat is. Why do I have a private? I have a private chat with Anna. Why do I have a private chat with Anna?
Maybe she sent you something privately, and that's why the option is there. But you need to go back to everyone.
Okay, love you guys. Now can you see it?
Yes.
There you
Yep.
go.
Yay.
Don't confuse the old man. That's rule number one. Gonna make me cry. All right. Nietzsche operationalizes, all postmodernism operationalizes the critique of metaphysics by articulating a new theory of language and what language is and how it works. And that theory is called nominalism. Good?
Good.
Okay.
Good.
All right. Now, let's just spend a few minutes walking through this. we could have done 2 lectures on this, but we've got about 25 minutes. So let's do the best we can so we really understand what we're going to find in the preface and the first essay. Okay, so what are the core elements of nominalism? There are 3 core elements of nominalism. First, and again, this isn't new. Many people have said this, but Nietzsche pushes it to its logical conclusion. First, all language is a human invention. All language is a human invention. Excuse me. And he means this at the very core of all language. And weren't we talking about this a little bit in one of our lectures before we left? Okay, let me walk back this. So when Nietzsche argues that language is human invention, what he is saying, what all postmodernists, what Foucault commits to, what Derrida commits to, what Lyotard, what Deleuze and Guattari, Judith Butler, all postmodernists are nominalists, and they all commit to this account of language. And it starts literally with the most basic building blocks of all language. So if you think of what language is words and definitions and meanings and grammatical structures. It's this big, massive thing that kind of makes sense, right? But if you walk backwards to the very core element of all languages, the most core and basic element of all languages are what the postmodernists call symbols. And these are letters. This is what we would call a letter. So N is a symbol, right? N is a symbol. It's and not just a symbol. Sometimes they will use the word even more kind of dramatic. They'll use the word mark. If you look at N, literally the line up, sideways line up. It's a mark, it's a symbol, it's a mark, right? You could think of Z as another mark, or R as a mark. And you have different marks and different symbols in all the various alphabets. The Chinese characters have different marks that function as units in the alphabet. Arabic has different marks. Chinese language has different marks. The Slavic languages have different marks. The Romance languages have different marks. All languages begin originally existentially as literal scribbles, as marks, as marks on it. If you wanted to think of a mark as a tree on a tree, or with basic paint, something, doesn't matter how primordial you want to get about this. The most basic element of all human language begins with individual marks. In this case, N, Z, R, add as you want to go. And you can conceive of this in any language you want. It's the same thing. Now, what's critical here, and this is already something we've opened up, what's critical here is that these marks, this N, or this Z, or this R, or any other different mark in a different language, these marks are 2 things. They are human inventions and they are arbitrary. They are human inventions and they are arbitrary. The fact that this mark, this N, right, the fact that it looks like this is in and of itself a human invention, and it is arbitrary. Now, when they say it is a human invention and it is arbitrary, they mean it in the sense that this N, when we see this mark, this N, when they say that it's a human invention and arbitrary, they mean to convey this idea. This mark, this N, does not correspond with This mark does not correspond with nor reveal something objectively true about something like this mark, this N. There's no N-ness, right? There's no objective condition, noumenal content, idea. There's nothing objective out there in the cosmos, out there in heaven, out there in the universe that somehow constitutes some truth of this mark N. The mark does not correspond to or reveal something objectively true. The mark N is a purely human what?
Invention.
Invention.
And it is also what? Arbitrary, meaning that it derives, it's not just an invention, but it derives from the idiosyncrasy of the inventor. And marks and symbols do not correspond to any objective thing out there, to any, there's no N essence, there's no N truth. N is a human, the mark is a human invention, and it's arbitrary. So for example, my wife, she's half Algerian, she speaks fluent Arabic. The mark for N looks entirely different. Obviously, I'm being stupid here in my simplicity, so forgive me. But if she were to write N, if she were to write my name, I couldn't recognize my own name in Arabic before I met her, because those marks don't mean anything to me, right? Those marks don't mean anything to me. She could write my name in Arabic and I don't see my name. I don't see it as meaning Nick. I don't see it as applying to me. In fact, it is literally meaningless. It is literally just a bunch of what?
Scribbles.
Scribbles. Lovely, Ruth. Beautiful. Fucking perfect. It's literally a bunch of scribbles that have no meaning, that have no that don't mean anything, that don't signify anything, that don't represent anything. They are literally scribbles. Those scribbles don't become meaningful until you and I, as human language evolves and community evolves, agree to call these damn things N's, and that N's sound like right? And that they signify this phonetic sound, So symbols and marks are existentially human inventions, and they're arbitrary. Now, as you get more sophisticated in creating languages, you can start to put together all sorts of individual marks like that. There is an assortment, a kind of putting together of 4 separate marks. There's an N, and there's an I, and a C, and a K. Or we could do this. There's a C, and there's an A, and there's a T. So we can take individual marks that are themselves human inventions and wholly arbitrary. So phonetic sounds start to mean something. Okay, I know I look ridiculous. And then we can take those original marks and we can put them together to make what are called signs or words. So now when we look at the combination of those 4 marks, the N, the I, the C, the K, we see the word Nick, right? Or when we put together the marks and the symbol CAT, we see cat. And now we have a sign. In nominalism, we have a sign. We have a word, a sign. And it literally means what it means. The putting together of individual marks into bigger units, create the sign. Now the organization of this C and this A and this T, this is now a sign that represents what? Foul,
Anything.
yeah, well, in this case, foul-mannered, furry creatures, cats, right? Or in the case of my name, a person, a male person. So marks are arbitrary. The way marks get put together into signs are human inventions and arbitrary, right? There's no, so pushing this whole argument of nominalism. So when we look at the word cat, Nietzsche does not think that that word corresponds to some objective truth about what?
What a cat is?
Yeah, cat essence, what a cat is, the truth of a cat. Now, this seems obvious, but once we move from things that exist in the world, like nicks and cats and trees, what if we go to something like justice? Oh, okay. So here's a word. It's made up of all sorts of marks that are themselves human inventions, and they're arbitrary, and they're put together in this sense to convey not something, to act as a sign that doesn't physically exist, but is wholly a concept, what Kant called noumenal. It's a concept. And Nietzsche says, in the same way that these marks put together to form the word cat, in the same way that that sign for that furry, mean-spirited, nasty, antisocial, four-legged thing, cats, right? In the same way that that sign, as it represents the thing, doesn't correspond to the truth of cats or catness or cat essence, the same way, once we move from signs that represent material things to signs that represent fully conceptual things like justice. Justice is a word. It's a sign that becomes a word that we use to represent, to signify, in the technical language, to signify or represent some concept that we are talking about. But for Nietzsche, that word, because it is, not only are the marks originally human inventions and arbitrary, but even the way we've put together the word is itself what? A human what?
Invention.
Invention, and also what?
Arbitrary.
Arbitrary, right? There's no, it's impossible, because Nietzsche's committed to a nominalist account of language, it's impossible in a way that that word corresponds to something what?
True.
Yeah, more objectively true. That there is some pure idea of justice, or some pure concept of justice that applies everywhere, all the time, and to everybody. So nominalism begins its critique of metaphysics by challenging the metaphysical account of human mind and language. Now just stay with me for a second here. And by the way, we've riffed on this a little bit already when we were talking about true subjectivity, moral agency, and Mill. If Mill is right, and I'm just using him as one example of a metaphysical account of true subjectivity to kind of get into this question and illuminate what nominalism is about. If Mill is right, because Mill says, look, every person, there's an objectively true self, what Mill called moral agency. right? And the purpose of life, Mill said, was one, to get the voices of your parents out of your head, right? So you can listen to your own what?
Voice.
Voice, your own ideas, your own voice. So then you can start to discover your true what?
Self.
Self. Now, for that to be a possibility, it assumes that whatever those true ideas are, or that true self is, or the true content that constitutes the self, whatever those things are, they are already what?
There.
Yeah, love you guys so damn much. They are already there. Where are they already there?
In your mind?
Yeah, love you guys. Either somehow this kind of just this knowledge, this noumenal content that's already inside your what? Your mind. Or from the Christian point of view, the content's already where?
Your
Soul.
In your soul. Right? And here's the key. It's only because it's already there that you can actually do what?
Find it.
Find it. Find it. Brilliant. Right? So that means, and now we're just looping up some bigger stuff in metaphysics that we've already talked about. So that means from a metaphysical point of view, from Platonic metaphysics, or from Christian theology, just to name two. So as I'm born and as I'm existing and as I'm growing, everything I need to know about Nick Dungy, the true Nick Dungy, or the moral life, the correct life, all of that stuff is already where?
In your mind.
It's inside me. And not only are the ideas inside me, but again, just walk this through from the metaphysical argument. It has to be this way. I must also possess the capacity to now, no doubt through a lot of work, but to in some way, and this was the purpose of all philosophy, some way to discover the correct words about important things like justice that connect me to what?
Your true self?
Yeah, not just to my true self, but even to the true what? Concepts, right? So metaphysics argues, it has to argue, right? For a true self to exist and for true concepts to exist like justice, one, those ideas have to already be in us. And two, we have to also possess the innate capacity to discover the correct words, literally the words like justice, or the ideas, concepts that correspond to the true Nick Dungy, right? We need to be able to do that. And by the way, that's why in philosophy for thousands of years, they spent so much time trying to discover the correct what. See, they were looking for something like justice. They spent all of their time looking for the right words that correspond to what?
Concepts.
Concepts. And in this case, concepts like what? Justice. Okay? So metaphysics assumes that the ideas are in our heads and that there are words, potential words that we can find that will help us correspond with or reveal the what?
Concept.
The truth.
Concept.
Yeah, the truth of that concept. Right? So for metaphysics, language isn't an entirely human what?
Invention.
Invention. It can't be. And it can't be entirely. So for metaphysics, language can't be entirely a human invention. Some words are human inventions, but some of the big ones for metaphysics, it can't be. And it can't be arbitrary. So for example, let's just drive this home in a kind of clumsy way. We think about this in terms of contemporary science, right? Think of this in terms of contemporary physics. Right now, and this is a generalization, so, and there are things we could debate about this, so I understand that, but just generally speaking, right now, the smartest physicists in the world, they're all trying to find the unifying theory. They're all trying to find the mathematical equation now that's my unifying theory. X plus Z, half a happy face, hashtag, 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 let's roll. There's Dungy's unifying theory, right? And in my stupid, grotesque, almost criminally stupid way, if you think about what physicists are doing, they're looking for, and by the way, they're looking for it in a kind of language. Math is a kind of language, right? Math is a language, right? You got marks. You got X's and pluses and Z's. Those are marks, right? And you can put those marks together to form equations, right? That's what Dr. Cole taught you in your statistics class. You can put the marks together to form equations. And if you put the right marks in the right equations, the better you get at that, the closer you get to what?
The truth.
The truth. Love you guys, right? So metaphysics assumes that the content for the truth is one, in our mind, and two, that we can equip ourselves with a kind of language that helps us correspond with it or reveal it. But postmodernism, nominalism argues that's not what language is, and that's not how language operates. First of all, language is an entirely human what?
Invention.
Invention. Now, to be sure, an important or not important invention? Fucking important, obviously. And language is real and it's important, but it's not. Things can be real without being what?
Important.
Yeah, love you guys. So nominalism says the marks and the words that are created in language are human inventions and they are arbitrary. Language does not correspond with or reveal the what?
Truth.
The truth. Perfect. Two, I've got 2 more minutes and we'll get through this and then we'll pick this up on Thursday. 2, are you ready? Now we're going to get into the serious postmodern stuff. If you've had the tragedy class with me, you're familiar with this, but this is where the postmodern Nietzschean stuff gets very heavy. 2, not only is language a human invention and arbitrary, it is simultaneously an assertion of power. It is simultaneously an assertion of power. Now, obviously, it's an assertion of power because the invention of marks and words are the very process by which things in the world come to have what?
Meaning.
Meaning.
Meaning, and not just meaning, but what? Value?
Truth.
Yeah, or at least importance. Meaning, value, and purpose. Last point, we'll pick this up on Thursday, but I want to get all 3 points in for nominalism. Language is a human invention. It is simultaneously an assertion of what?
Power.
Power. And 3, and here's a big one, and by the way, we're living this right now. We are in the midst of this moment right now. Language, and therefore meaning, value, and purpose are constantly doing what? Changing. They are contingent. We will see this word when we talk about Rorty. Language is contingent. It's constantly changing. And there's a kind of combat. There's an agon. There's a conflict, combat, agon over how language operates in its ability to assert meaning, assert value, and guide human purposes. Okay? All right, geniuses. I got to bounce because I got another class.
Thank you.
Good one.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Bye. Bye.
Has been amazing, you guys. You're all here. It went great. I love you unconditionally. We're going to resist and we're going to thrive. We'll see you Thursday.
Yeah.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, you guys.